Hello and welcome to Thursdays Live with Chug. My name is Neha Mahajan, Business Development and Outreach Manager at Chug LLP Attorneys and CPAs. It's Thursday today, August 25th. It's 2 o'clock Eastern Time, which means we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn with another topic. Today we're discussing startups and legal tips that you should know. So if you're thinking or if you're considering jumping on the entrepreneurship bandwagon, or you have a business that's expanding, right? And you don't understand the legalities involved, you don't have to worry about it because today's discussion is just about that. Whether it's about incorporating or running the business or reviewing contracts, hiring or firing the employees, protecting intellectual properties, trademarks, or handling business disputes, you definitely need an experienced attorney who can give you the right kind of guidance and can guide you through the process. Therefore, I'm delighted to introduce our attorney, Miss Mengsin Shui, or Esther, as she is popularly called. She's joining us from our Virginia office. Hi there, Esther.
Hi Neha, how are you? Hello everyone.
I am.
Hello,
Yes.
this is Esther. I'm an attorney from True Law Firm. Very nice to meet you guys.
Yes, absolutely. So, Esther, tell us more about what kind of expertise you have, what kind of a legal experience you have. You've been with the firm for some time now. How do you help clients with their entrepreneurship journey?
Sure, thank you so much, Neha. So just to briefly introduce myself, this is Esther. I'm from Virginia office. I'm a corporation litigation attorney. As to the corporation work that I help our clients to incorporate, I do the contracts review and also fundraising and the corporation compliance. So any matter that you can think of relevant to the corporation, we are here to help. And as to the another kind of things like trademark, which is also a deviation from the corporation, we also can help with that. So this is major that what I practice. I really love talking to the client because most of my clients, they are really really nice and very energetic and very passionate about their business. So definitely I also learn a lot from them. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank everybody who's joining us today for this live. Just want to mention that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And the discussion today is for informational purposes only, does not create an attorney-client relationship. But if you have any questions for us and any questions that you would want us to answer during the live, please be sure to submit those questions in the comments section or write to us, info@chug.com. That's info at chugh.com. Getting on to the discussion today, and hopefully you will all leave with a roadmap of all things a business owner must know to get on their entrepreneurship journey or enhance their entrepreneurship journey from a legal perspective. Just to give you guys a little background why it's important that we're discussing about this topic today. In the last quarter of 2021, 376,000 businesses were formed in United States alone, right? In 2022, startups across the globe are valued at more than 3.5 trillion combined. It is an exciting time, definitely, to open new business or expand your business. So, Esther, my first question to you is, what is the most common question that you're asked when an entrepreneur approaches you, reaches out to you? What do they ask you?
Sure. It's really every question that everybody have. So, for example, I have every client come into my office say, "Hey, Esther, I finally make my biggest decision. I want to start my own business. I'm not gonna be employed by any third party. So, okay, this is my decision. Tell me what should I do at the first place." So basically, the most common question I receive is what type of entities that they should start with. For example, whether they should start with LLC, corporation, partnership, etc., like that. Or the second question they will ask is which state I should start from, because these are also very important questions for them since they're located in different places. So these are two basic questions that I receive every time from each client. Of course, then the third one is, once I decide this, then what's the next step is. I do not know. I have no idea what kind of thing that I have to do to make it happen. So help me with that. So these are all the three comments, the question that I receive from our clients.
Right. Right. So really from ideation all the way to getting the whole idea off the ground and making sure the business is set up and running is what we all do. We all the legal advice that we help our clients with. So what are some of the things that you'd like the clients to know right at the onset of your meeting with them?
Sure, but actually, as attorney, the most important thing from my side is I try to understand the whole picture in their mind. So what is the long term, short term, what the purpose of nature of the business they have, and only based upon this kind of information, then we can give a precise or proper answer to them. So take an
Right.
example. If the clients come to me say, "Hey, Esther, I'm just sole person, and I'm doing IT only so far. I don't see anybody gonna join me probably within 5 years. I'm gonna do a very small business part." Or a client come to me say, "Hey, Esther, I want to invest. I want to have an investment real estate. I'm gonna purchase one home in Florida. And if that's the case, well, what should I do to protect myself?" So these are all the questions that I would like to ask first. So then I will know exactly what's in their mind. So for example,
Right.
take the question above for this two-person who is doing the investment and who is doing, very small business as LLC. Sorry, as a small business, I will recommend
Yeah.
them to have an LLC, at the very beginning, because this is all depends on their, long term and short term goal and what they see there standing in the next five
Right.
years. Yeah. So
Right.
basically,
And that's such and I'm glad you brought that point out because it's so hard to decide whether you want an LLC, whether you want a corporation. Are there more options really? And is one better than the other? I'm sure anybody who's watching us right now, they have this question, whether I should go for an LLC or whether I should form a corporation. I'd appreciate your expertise on this.
sure, no problem. So basically, definitely, other than LLC and the corporation, there are different types of entities. Let us say like a partnership, sole proprietary, this kind of entity or the different type. So there, to be very honest, it really case by case. It depends on the situation that our client has. So for example, if, as I said, it's a small business and only one person, so probably in that case, there will be no need for the investor to come in the picture in the future. So if that's the case, the LLC probably is a proper choice for the clients. For example, if the client has a huge idea and he believes that he's gonna launch a program which will attract a lot of investor in the future. So if that's the case, probably we can recommend a corporation because the investor have more idea and will attractive more investor if it is a corporation. So it really depends on the case by case. Definitely they are very different from the entity to entity. So for example, the corporation, we call it shareholder, right? The stockholder who are the owners of the corporation. So the ownership will decided by the shares that you purchased or you have. But for LLC, when we call the owner, we refer them as members. So they're gonna be the members who in the LLC. And the structure also different. For the LLC, if you are a member of LLC, which means you are the owner, you can choose either to be the managing member type or like a member managing, which means that the LLC is run by the members or are operated by the manager who is appointed by the members. So these are all the different details for each entities and very different. But the good thing for the LLC and corporation is once we comply with the law, then you are free from the personal liability because the corporation and the LLC is a different type of have the separate entity from yourself. So this is the biggest advantage as long as you're in compliance with the laws.
That is really important to know, and thank you for mentioning that. We're 10 minutes into our discussion already, Esther. Can you beat that? For all those, all of you who are joining us right now, we're talking about startups. We're talking about all the legal tips that you need to know. So if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are someone who wants to become one but really doesn't know how to navigate the legalities around it, this discussion is for you. I have our attorney Esther joining us from our Virginia office. And today's discussion is for informational purposes only. It does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have a question for us, info@chuk.com, you could send us an email there. Or if you're watching us live and if you want to leave a question in the comment section, please be sure to do that. We'll be happy to answer them. Esther, you spoke about the differences between LLC and corporations, right? Now, one of the most common state of incorporation is Delaware, right? Almost every company that I know of is incorporated in Delaware. Now we know why, but does it really matter where a company is incorporated?
Yeah, it's really good question, Neha, because it seems like a default rule for everybody who want to start a business. So before that, actually, I do want to discuss about the specific thing about why the Delaware, from good perspective, it's good, and also discuss whether it's necessary. The first for Delaware, everybody knows it's friendly to the corporation and friendly to the entity. That's really important because everybody will have the different kind of filing requirements for the different state. But for the Delaware, it's very friendly and it's kind of be flexible, and the information is very straightforward. And of course, there is a separate, jurisdiction. So no, sorry, it's not jurisdiction. The separate court will dealing the corporation issues separately. So which means they have a mature system to help you if there's any dispute come up. So this is a very important factor that people like Delaware. The third issue and third factor is that for the privacy. To be honest, for the public information, some of our clients gonna have concern about it, like who should be the shareholder, is everybody can know my personal information, etc., etc. But in the Delaware, it's have more privacy space for the corporation and the people owning the corporation and entities. So that's the reason why people really like Delaware. But as to the question whether it is mandatory for me to really incorporate Delaware, actually, it really depends. From my perspective, it is not mandatory and it's not that as a must. The reason because you have to consider your own situation. For example, where you're located physically, where your business gonna start, where your customers are. These are all the questions that you need to think of yourself, for yourself first. The reason is because if you incorporate Delaware, but actually you're locating, let us say, in Virginia, and your all customer are in Virginia, then what you have to do is once you incorporate Delaware, you still have to pay the tax and be in the compliance in Virginia. So which means that you have two obligations, subject to two states. And also probably the filing requirements for the two states as well. So for me, it is not a must that you have to do this just because the benefits that I mentioned. So if in that scenario, which we always feel like to advise the client, is to make it more convenient for you. So if you're starting a business in Virginia only, and you have your corporation, you reside in Virginia, then why not you start with the Virginia one? So you don't need to subject to Delaware. You don't need to do any annual filing to the Delaware only because you incorporate there. So this is the main suggestion that we always discuss with the client. Of course, this is their final decision, but I do think that it's necessary for us to bring it up.
That is a very important piece of advice. Just because other businesses are incorporating, in Delaware, doesn't mean your business should also incorporate in Delaware. That was really amazing piece of advice right there. But my question is, when in the journey of being an entrepreneur, should the incorporation be made, or should, how does one know when to incorporate really?
Sure. The first thing is we always recommend that you have at least established some entity to avoid personal liability. Because if you are doing the business on your own, so which means that when you sign the agreements and contracts with your own signature, so which means that you will be the party on the contract, which not help you to prevent personal liability. So when you have this kind of necessity, and at the point that you will need to sign a contract and binding and have specific obligation over a contract, then this is the time that at least for you to start your own business and at least to separate yourself from the liability you may face.
Which is, I think, it should be parallel to idea. The minute you have an idea of, if you're even thinking of opening a business, that is the time for you to incorporate the business, right?
Sure, yeah, because the business is very important, and when you have the idea, of course, everybody will think about who is a big decision. When I start my
Yeah.
business, what about the money? What about all the time that I put in? Whether I can get any, income, etc. So the people are very concerned about this. But the good news is in the United States, incorporation procedure is very straightforward. So there will be a lot of things that get in your way to prevent you from doing so. So you can feel any time that if you want to have a good idea and you want to develop and take the efforts, then that is the time. It is a good time.
Yeah. All right. So is that it? You said it's fairly easy to incorporate. Is that it? You just incorporate and you're ready to roll? I'm sure there must be more things attached to, the whole procedure. There's more work that needs to be done after filing for incorporation.
Sure, yes. So as I said, filing per se is very straightforward because you will only need to prepare some, governing document and make some filing to the state. But however, after that, it is your obligation and responsibility to continue make sure that you are in the compliance with the law. So in that case, of course, the governing document will need to prepare, such as like initial minutes. Initial minutes is a document that you will need to make sure you have it. Appoint, if it is a corporation, then you appoint directors. If you are the owner and you will be the only one, then you appoint yourself as the directors. And who gonna be responsible for the filing, who is gonna
Yeah.
responsible dealing the business with bank. These are all gonna be shown in the governing document after the filing. Of course, you will need to establish ownership by issuing the stock certificate to the funders. So these are all the necessary things that you will need to do after the filing.
All right. And what else should an entrepreneur pay attention to? The DBA, trademark, business qualification, license in the local state. State laws, I feel, are often ignored.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So basically, it really depends on the state from state. For example, in Virginia and in California, there are really difference, a huge difference between the states. So you will need to make sure that which state you're subject to, and then you will need to decide which is the best way to protect yourself. So for example, if you have a really good idea and it's relevant, it's really new and then nobody you ever thought to think about it. So if that's the case, then it is a good time for you to have a DBA and to apply a trademark, so which will protect your business. And probably if it is about technology things, then probably a patent is also necessary for you to before
Yeah.
launching a program. So in that case, you will make sure that in the future nobody gonna compete with you with the exactly same idea only because you forget it to protect yourself from the intellectual property side.
Yeah, and I'm sure no one thinks of things like sloppy documentation, or failing to minimize employee legal risk, trademark and lack of intellectual property, like you mentioned, and lack of intellectual property protection is often ignored too. What's your advice around all of this then?
Sure. So the first thing, absolutely, after the filing is to make sure that all the governing documents are prepared properly. So let us say, for example, the incorporator should appoint the directors on the board if you are a corporation. And then for the initial minutes, you will need to specify what is the text, methods, and who should be responsible for which area, who are the initial shareholders, how the company
Yeah.
gonna issue the stock certificate. These are all the matters gonna be put in the initial minutes. And of course, you will have either a bylaw if or an operating agreement. Really depends on whether you're a LLC or corporation. But these are all the details that you will need to make sure that everybody gonna follow as the whole entity. So after that, of course, we coming to a step that whether you're gonna have any employees in the middle. Because when the employees come in the picture, definitely there will be more concerns and issues that you will have to be aware of, specifically for the state law, like how the state law define employee, how to make sure that the employee are properly treated and properly classified, whether they're employee or independent contractor, and how do you make sure that when you terminate them, it's in a proper way. So these are all the things that you will need to think of, which, our advice is for the employee issue, you can have some policy, employment agreement to protect yourself and also protect the employees. So therefore, that everybody are on the same page about what they should do and what is the expectation. And if employee there is misconduct, and then what the company gonna deal with it, and how the employee can improve their performance. So these are all very important and the foundations for a corporation or LLC.
Yeah, those are some really important points you mentioned there, Esther. And people, see, it's no harm in saying that when you're an entrepreneur, when you're really just starting off on your journey, you want to cut corners, you want to save some money, and many times entrepreneurs, they try to use shortcuts, they try to use through other platforms or services that are outside. I just want to is so important. Just don't go by whatever's available on the net. That's not the right way of doing it. There's a reason why an attorney can guide you right in the proper way to save you.
Yeah, you're
All
right,
right.
Nate. Yeah, so because for the contract, of course, there will be different. So for us, the most important thing that we will always wanted to know is what is the nature of business from the client. So only because we have a relationship between our law firm and our clients, we know what their concern is, what their picture in their mind. Then we can customize the plan. We can advise accordingly, just based on the personal situation, based on the company situation. So only because of that, I think that they're really helpful if you have a attorney or law firm helping you to prepare this document, because
Right.
every document can be very different, but it always can be customized to the best to fit your current situation. So of course you can use the online website and the template, but when you come up with a really close relationship with the attorney that who can help you with very specific questions, you will feel much more secured. I believe probably that's the difference between that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely rightfully said. And, a little earlier in our discussion, we were talking about employee legal risk, right? See, an entrepreneur, their focus should really be on attracting investors and making sure that their, structure is steady, their product is ready to go. And so what can an entrepreneur do really to kind of minimize employee legal risk? Are there other things that they should be thinking of that that probably often gets overlooked?
Right, yeah. So when we talk about attract the investors, so actually based on our experience, you have to put yourself in the shoe of investors, what they really care about. So
Yeah.
when we talk about this point, definitely the very important factor is gonna be what is the value of the company, whether this company is facing some liability or potential risk to be sued, or whether this company has a clear picture about themselves when they develop. So these are all the very important question to the investor. So when you put yourself in their shoes, then you kind of understand, oh, okay, well, this is what I need to focus. So as to the value of the company, then the legal issue comes is whether you are properly protecting the assets, your intellectual property. Because if you are a company relying on your technology, then definitely the most valuable things in the business is your intellectual property, the confidential information, the secret, right? So these are all the things that cannot be damaged because it will be a huge problem for the company if they do not do the proper step. So these are all the things that the investor gonna take care of, really care about. The second is about liability. When we're talking about liability, how to avoid the liability is definitely one of the most important factor that the company has to think of. So if that's the case, as we just mentioned, like employment agreement, the employment policy, contract reviewing, these are all the things that are relevant to the liabilities. So when you have idea about what kind of obligation you have and what the risk
Yeah.
you're facing, then you feel more confident when you talk with the investor. And the
All right.
third part definitely is a due diligence. So what governing document you already have, what are missing. So these are all the things you need to think of before you really sign an agreement with investor, because they also want to know during the middle whether I'm investing in a good business, whether this businessman are really taking care of their business by complying the law. So these are all the things that if we put ourselves from investor perspective, we will be more clear about it. All right.
Absolutely. And you said it so, you said just the right thing. The most important point in entrepreneurship journey is really to be in front of an investor and negotiate the terms in your investment agreement, right? What advice do you have in that case? I mean, you did mention some of it, but I really want you to go a little bit more in detail. Before we start wrapping up, we are 3 minutes left for our discussion today.
Sure, sure. I think that we discuss a lot from different perspective regarding
Okay.
everything that we mentioned. But the biggest, important part is that to always keep an eye on your own business and the performance. To make sure that you're in compliance with law. So, for example, each state has their difference. So, for example, the license, whether you need a license, whether you need a permit. For example, if you open another business in the other state, then it is the time for you to have a foreign qualification doing business. Otherwise, you're not allowed to do the business in that state. So these are all the things that you have to super monitor from time to time. And otherwise, for the contracts, when you sign a contract with the partner or the other third party, you will need to make sure that whether there's any tricky clauses there will bother you in the future, or will be any risk come in the picture. So these are all the things that as an entrepreneur that you will need help.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes people ask, do I need an attorney or can I just do it on my own? What do you want to say to them?
Yeah, so of course, I totally understand the concern actually behind that and the rationale, because when I talk with my client want to know what is the difference and why they're hiring attorney here, and what is the pro and con. So I totally understand because I'm also people doing the business, talking with people. So the budget definitely is one concern that everybody has. So that's the reason that we actually put ourselves as a very friendly way, and to make sure that when we talk with our client, we understand their concern, and talking with them, understand what their budget is, so that we can help and to help them out of that situation. The second part, as I mentioned, have a close relationship other than download from website, they will be different. So that's, I think, that the main major difference that I always, talk it, with my clients, which my client also totally understand.
All right, that brings us to the end of our discussion today. Esther, thank you so much for all your expertise, all your knowledge that you shared with our audience today, and thank you for joining us all the way from Virginia. And thank you to all of you too who've joined, who've liked, who've commented, who've asked us questions. I know we got a couple of questions that were not related to the topic that we were discussing today, so I'd request you to please email that question to us, and I'll make sure that we take care of it. Our email is info@chugh.com. That's info at chugh.com. Until next time, this is your friend Neha Mahajan saying bye. Stay safe.
Thank you.